everybody? We're back from a live show where we're going over sliding dovetails. We build them on Origin, bring them in the studio, design some cool things, show you how to do tapered sliding dovetails as well, and then Jake cut them out by hand. They turn out perfect.
You should join us live next time. Every other Thursday, we do live Q&As at the end, and we do giveaways. Bits, double-sided tape, trace, calipers, you name it, all kinds of stuff. Come see us every other Thursday, 4 o'clock Pacific.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
And I'm Sean.
And today, we're doing sliding dovetails.
Oh, it's going to be a good one.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about this one for a long time. It's a heady topic, but promise by the end of it, well, I can't promise.
We're going to do our best.
We're going to do our absolute best to really break this down and simplify how to nail a sliding dovetail.
Yeah, there's so many different things to find out and figure out, and we're going to walk you through 2 different examples. They're both through dovetails, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as the show goes on, but one is going to be just a standard straight dovetail, and then one's going to be a single tapered dovetail. Now, there's all sorts of different ways to do these sliding dovetails. I spent the last couple weeks kind of experimenting with a couple things and trying to figure out what made sense to show. So we're going to talk about some of these things, and as the show goes on, hopefully your brain will start working and come up with even crazier ones. But we're going to start basic, and then maybe next show we'll have like a crazy one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is Sean's like personal pet project. So
I've been trying to do a tapered sliding dovetail for a while. I just, there's a lot to figure out about what the files look like, what are your settings to cut, how does it work, what does it mean to adjust things? Because what you're going to find out is it's not quite the same as when we are cutting normally with like a straight bit. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. We'll walk you through both of those and show you how we made the files. And yeah, it's
great. Reminder, everyone, this is a live show, so please use that comment section below. Ask those questions. We have Ted in the chat. He's going to be answering questions as we go, but we're going to save the juicy ones for the end of the show for a live Q&A, which we'll be also doing a giveaway.
Maybe a couple
giveaways. In order to enter your name into that wheel for a chance to win, you must answer the poll question about halfway through the show, and the question for the day is, what is your favorite masterclass that we've produced?
Nice. Yeah, and we'll during break, if you don't even know what masterclass is, we'll show you a couple.
We'll show you where to find them all.
Yeah,
they're masterpieces.
They are a master class. All right, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
What are sliding dovetails, and why are we even talking about them, Jake? Well, I think I wanted to just explain with a little demo piece I made here. A quick example. So. Anyone who's ever done woodworking probably knows the classic dado, which basically helps you join. That's not a dado. The classic dado that you cut a slot in the material and then you place your material in, and you get a pretty nice little fitting joint. It's great for cabinet carcasses, all sorts of types of material. But the problem with them is they come out without glue. They're nothing, and with glue, they're good for a while, and maybe over time you get some wood movement. What would be better is a mechanical joint that allows you to take a dovetailed bit and slide it in there, and then now, even without glue, it's not going anywhere. It's mechanical strength versus just kind of having this normal profile, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So, where does this get used? Well, we do have a session from a long time ago. I thought I'd bring it out for Jake. Look at this thing.
Not all sessions projects get finished.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back down to this camera just so we can see where this is actually being used. But if you look here, we have a couple sliding dovetails that are using this panel here. And they basically just slot in and kind of hold the piece together. It's kind of a really nice mechanical joint. So even when your glue joint fails eventually, it'll hopefully be still together. So yeah, that's the sliding dovetail. There's probably other uses for it too. One of the ones that I did see when I was doing a little research last week, and one that we don't see very often, is battens for underneath the table.
It's such a great idea.
You basically have a table, you do an undercut dovetail on the bottom and slide this dovetailed piece in, and then staked legs go through it. They add a lot of mechanical strength for the table, and they keep that table from wanting to cup on you.
And you wouldn't even glue that in, right? You're just required.
No, it's just tight fit, and there's lots of different ways to do it. Today, we're on Origin, so I think let's jump into it.
All right. I'm going to start off by just getting our workspace going. We have some poplar set up, some 3/4 thick poplar. We are using our 15-degree dovetail bit.
Yeah, if you don't have a dovetail bit, we have it on the store. You can go purchase it. This is also going to work with any dovetail bit, but everything we're talking about today will kind of reference the angle of the bit we have. If you have a different angle, you'll need to change settings. This is one of the things that is tricky about getting dovetails working in general, is you have to make the files match your geometry. The angle, the diameter, all these kind of things come into play.
I'm going to go ahead and create a backside grid. For this, we could either do a rectangular probe to find the center, or we can do a backside grid.
Yeah, and maybe while Jake's setting that up, one thing we could come over to this front cam for a second. When we're cutting dovetails, we want to be very careful about which way they are going with the grain. So we have the grain running this way. We're going to want to cut this way for these dovetails, because if we were to cut this way and have it on the top here, this part would want to kind of break off quite easily. If we come here and we cut, we have a pretty strong grain direction that's going to keep it going. So make sure you're paying attention to the grain of your wood when you put it in there, because I may or may not have accidentally cut one the wrong direction.
All right, my material, so that you can get it set up on Studio,
Yep.
is
Okay,
0.75 on the money.
we're going to pop over to here, and I'm going to make a new design. And I'm going to first enter this stock that Jake has. So how big is it?
0.75 high.
Okay, so 0.75 high. And how wide?
5.5.
5.5. Okay. I'm going to click this button up here to zoom to my selection. And that's going to just kind of recenter the camera for us. Now, this is essentially our stock. So I can do a couple things. I can, turn it into a reference path and use that to snap and create shapes around it, or I can leave it as is and turn it into a guide later so that we don't cut this. We just want to be able to use this shape to build material on, or build our joint on top of. Now, for the sliding dovetail, we're gonna maybe come over to this front cam. There's a couple key parts to think about. Where did I put that bit? The dovetail bit. Okay, so the number one thing to think about when you're building this is that the dovetail bit that you're using has a certain width at the top. And that's going to eventually need to run through your material to allow this part to slide into it. So the piece that we're going to design has to at least fit the max diameter of the bit. Okay, and in this case, this bit is 13.8 millimeters, the shaper bit. So I'm going to come into Studio, and I'm just going to create another rectangle. And we'll start by, okay, this is one of the great things about Studio. We can go into our height, and I like to go a little bit over the 13.8, just so we get a little bit of room if we want to do some offsets on that final pass. If we get it a little bigger, we can actually, in Origin, make our cut offset and kind of clear that waste out and then come back with a nice finish pass. So if our bit's 13.8, I'm going to do 14.5 millimeters. And even though I'm in inches right now, if I just type in millimeters here, it's going to automatically convert that. And that is great because now we have a piece that is almost as thick as our material, but not quite. We probably want to make it so that this piece here is always a little bit smaller than our stock material. Otherwise, we're going to have trouble. This is one of the things. Basically, the diameter of your bit needs to be as big as the width of your material in general. Okay, so you can't, if you have a big dovetail bit and a small piece of stock, it's not going to actually work out very well for you. You're going to find out problems later. So just make sure, rule of thumb, your stock material is bigger diameter than the width of your bit. And now I'm just going to take this shape. This is the shape we're actually going to cut, and I'm going to stretch it out and make it a little bit over the edges here. Now, one thing when we're using dovetail bits, when we go to cut this, we're going to plunge once and cut all the way through the material, come back around the other end, all the way back, and retract. We want to make sure that while we're cutting, we don't retract the bit, because if we do, we're going to come up through the top and we're going to have a little hole in the top where the bit is undercutting the entire time. So when we're making this file, I'm making sure that I can plunge off the edge, get down to my depth, come through it all around it, and then I'm going to come back off the material and then retract. And that's going to make sure that I don't have any problems. And this is just something you're going to have to think about anytime you're using dovetail bits, because you can't retract in your material or you'll mess it up. Okay? So
Real quick, before
yeah.
you get too much further, a custom anchor point.
Yes, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna Jake set up for a backwards grid. So I'm gonna go ahead up to the design menu here, make sure my position is on, and click this add origin anchor button. And you're gonna see a little red triangle show up. And that's gonna be the stock where that point we made the grid on shows up. So all we need to do is take this main shape, and I'm just gonna drag it and snap it right there. And boom, now we have the back corner of our stock at the same point as where Jake made the grid. So now when we import that shape, it'll go in the right spot. So I'm just gonna take this shape that we're actually gonna cut and move it back, and you'll notice these little red lines show up when I'm dragging it around, and those lines basically auto snap to other objects in the world. So as long as I see this little triangle or crosshair, it's actually gonna snap perfectly, and now I know that this is centered on that, which is great. Okay, now it's good that I'm coming off the edges here, because we want to come around the edge on both sides. If we want it to be a through dovetail, we need to cut dovetail all the way through the material. And then the only thing I need to make sure is that I can plunge outside of the material. Now, we know this bit is 13.8 millimeters, so I'm just going to make a quick circle to check. And I'll just change this to 13.8 millimeters. Oh, 13.8 millimeters. And now I can get an idea of if I were to plunge on this line over here, I'm not going to hit that material. I'll turn that into a reference lock just so you can easily see the stock versus the shape. And that looks good. We can plunge in there, but maybe I'll make it a little bigger. It's always nice to have a little extra room so that you don't have any issues. Okay, I'll delete that circle since we were just using that for reference. And then I'm going to go to plan mode. And I'm going to make sure my bit diameter is the same, 13.8 millimeters. And now here's where the tricky part comes in, okay? And now we're going to jump over to the community, because a friend of the community, Bo, made a little calculator that helps us determine the offsets and the depth we need to cut. So we kind of have to figure all this stuff out up front. If you just click into that link here, it'll take you to this page here that basically gives you all the settings. So step one, fill out the degree. The shaper dovetail bit is a 15-degree bit, so that's entered there. And I know I want to cut this to a 10 millimeter depth dovetail. And what it's going to give us is it's going to give us settings that say, hey, for the pins, you need to basically have a negative offset of negative 2.679 millimeters. And for the slot on the inside, afterwards, we're just going to cut that to 0. And so that's going to make it really easy for us. And what I like to do in the studio file, just to make it easy for me, and especially when me and Jake are tag teaming this back and forth, I'll come in here and add some text, and I'm just going to copy that number. And I'm just going to put a little guideline in here that says, make sure, Jake, you cut this at this offset. Okay, we'll place the text. I'm going to scale it down and just move it right where I'm going to plunge. That way we can see it and we don't forget. And you know what, Jake? I really love single line fonts, and Studio has a great selection. So I'm going to go over there and click single line font. And which one you like? This one? Let's do Relief. It's a little easy to read, okay?
There you go.
Cool. So now when we go to Origin, that's going to be in there. Now, last step before we forget, I'm going to select the shape, go to Plan Mode, and I'm going to turn this into a guide so that Jake doesn't accidentally cut these letters.
But I can still see them in the file.
Correct.
Difference between a guide and a reference path
Yes.
Guides come over to the tool.
Yep.
Reference paths do not.
Yeah, so you can like this stock shape is not going to come over when we import it, but the guides will. And so sometimes you need both or one or the other. Okay, so this is our basic setup, and then the last thing I was going to do is, just so we don't forget, Jake, I'm just gonna set this to a 10 millimeter depth.
Beautiful.
So that way, that's also pre-programmed in. Okay, so this is the basic file, the most basic file I could build to do a through sliding dovetail. And there's a lot of complexity that you could do to add to this, but even with a couple simple rectangles and using the calculator from that website, we basically have everything we need now. So maybe Jake.
It's on there.
Yeah, should be on there. Should be ready to roll.
I was gonna say, so far we could make that design directly on tool.
Yeah, we could have totally made it on tool.
But something tells me when we get to tapered land,
yeah, and
studio.
After the break, we'll need a little extra.
All right, I went ahead and made a back left grid. Let's bring in my top line file. And using the custom anchor point, drop it at 0, 0. I went ahead and just did a manual Z-touch.
Yep.
Right on the edge of my material.
Yeah, and when you're working with dovetails, I would suggest, manual Z-touch is probably the way to go, just because there's so many little details along this step. So I've been doing manual Z-touches for it and had pretty good results.
It depends, too, if your dovetail bit is center cutting.
Yes.
Which often they are not.
Yeah, if we were to look here, you're only going to see, actually, the only parts of the dovetail bit are on the top corners, and the inside slants down. So, like, when you Z-touch, you're only touching off those two little probes, and
tiny,
sometimes it will
points.
Dig into your material. Yeah. So, anytime you have pointy bits, just use manual Z-touch, and then you'll keep going. Okay. Now,
I see this giant blue sign, thankfully, because I'm going to put it in to my offset.
Pretty nice little handy feature, huh?
I love it. 0.2 point.
That's
6,
millimeters,
7,
too.
9. What's a millimeter?
So this is one of the things that you will have to find out if you want to work in millimeters or you want to work in inches. I would suggest just picking one and then doing it. Or if you're feeling really crazy, do both.
We work almost exclusively in both.
Yeah.
And all.
It's nice to be able to work in both. But yeah, I do find that even when I'm entering stuff, sometimes I forget to convert, and then I get a 2-inch offset.
Yeah. It does still throw me off when I put a tool entirely in metric. I'm like, I have to do the math in my head.
Yeah.
But look at that. Now I can see my cut path, dark gray area, creeped into the cut, and that looks much more like a proper dovetail undercut.
Yep. And, the more you undercut, the more shoulder you have, but then you're kind of, you're reducing the point in the middle, but you're adding more shoulder. It's kind of up to you. You're going to have to kind of play with a couple and see what feels good. Also, it depends on the piece, how much strength you're looking for. So the thickness of that is kind of arbitrary, but it is going to actually affect the whole outcome. Yep. Okay, Jake, I think we're ready to cut. Let's go over some details, though, before we do this. One detail. Do not click the red button when you are under the material. For if you find your depths wrong or anything, you need to get out of that material before you retract. Otherwise, you're going to come out. So that's the one. And then 2, make sure you plunge off of the shape when you start, because you don't want to start on your material because you'll do the exact same thing.
And 3, slow yourself down on the exit. So I'm going to slow down considerably when I finish the cut.
Yep.
To try to avoid any blowout at the back end.
Correct.
All right, here we go.
What spindle speed are you at?
5.
Okay. Yeah,
Feels
I'd say
right.
Yeah, 4 to 5 feels good. Don't get too fast, because if you're undercutting, you start burning up a little bit. You really can't retract and get out. So I'd say 4 to 5 is a good starting point.
4.5.
All right, let it rip. So, you also have to do this in one pass. You can't do multiple passes here. So this is where, how deep your dovetail is how hard the cut's going to be. You can see here Jake's slowing down now as he goes around that corner. Anytime you come in or out, you want to just go slow, because you will see tear out. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what to do in that case and why this kind of through sliding dovetail is pretty cool, because we can kind of eliminate that tear out later by trimming the pieces. But you can see it came all the way across the edge and then retracted when he's off the shape. All right, so let's take a look and see what we got. How's tear out land?
Perfect.
Nice. Yeah, if you move into that cut a little slower, it will do a better job. And then especially when you get on the outside and you're going into air again, yeah, definitely want to slow down a bit. Okay, so one cut. If you wanted to, we could have done 2 offsets, but I think in most cases I've been feeling pretty good of single pass, going slow, getting good control of the machine.
Yeah.
You don't need to do an offset and then a second pass, but we're going to do that when we get to the other side. Okay, nice. So that's pretty much it for this.
Set up for the
next spot. Okay, now there's a couple things. We may have to change one little thing in studio because I forgot.
What'd you forget?
Well, okay, so maybe while Jake's setting this up, I'll explain and fix it. So when I made this file, we know that we're using this back grid. Now we're going to rotate our stock 90 degrees from that, and we're going to kind of cut it back and forth on the workstation. Now, the workstation has some space behind it, and you can see kind of here, this is a key part. We've lowered this down to the first row, so that way we can cut beyond it and come back. Now, this dimension is, do you know off the top of your head?
25 millimeters.
25 millimeters. So
of depth. Do you want the...
Oh, yeah, this way is what I'm looking for.
I don't know, but I have tape right here.
50 millimeters.
No, it's 21.
21 millimeters. Okay, so let's come here,
that.
and I'm just gonna kind of give you a quick understanding of what's gonna happen. So I'll draw quickly a rectangle, just to represent our material, like our stock would be, and make it a little bigger. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just to give you an idea. This is essentially the stock we have, and our sliding dovetails are going to cut through the stock. Now, what size is this? And then I'll just type it in, and then we won't have to guess.
This is 5.5.
Okay.
By 13 and 15/16.
13 plus 15 divided by 16. Don't you love Imperial? Okay, so now we have essentially the exact piece of material that's going to sit on the workstation. And so we can kind of put it wherever we want. Now, one of the things you're going to notice with sliding dovetails, and I made my mistake already, so you can learn from me. When you make one, let's come over here, and I'll just explain this real quick. So if this was, let's say this was our material here, this right here, and it comes all the way across, we're going to cut that sliding dovetail through right near the end because we're making a cabinet. You need to make sure that you're not too far to the edge, or else you're going to have no strength on this little piece, and it's just going to break off. So you kind of need to step it in enough that it doesn't break off. And this is going to be a key thing where, you know, if you were doing a mortise and tenon, something, you could put it right on the edge. But when you're doing these sliding dovetails and you're using them as far in support, you need to make sure you're worked in at least a little bit, because you're even going to cut in a little of where the material is. And so just a thing to think about. Now that when we come back over to studio, that should make a little more sense. I'm just going to make sure this material is got some space between the corner. Obviously, if you were designing something, you would dial it in a bit more. Okay, so now we have our stock. I'm going to go ahead and make that one a reference path 2, just so we can kind of keep an eye on it. And I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to make one more rectangle, just so we can make sure we're not going to cut into the workstation. So I'm going to take that little rectangle, and we said, what, 21 millimeters?
20.
20 millimeters. So we'll just make a little square to represent. So this would be right on the edge of that material. And you would see, if we were to cut this right now, when we're going to cut an inside pass on this, we would kind of run into the workstation a bit. Okay? So in order to fix that, we're going to want this lead in, so we're off the material here when we come in. But this, I'm just going to reduce by changing the anchor point to the front here. And then I'm going to grab this slider here, and I'm just going to drag it down so that it comes out the back enough that the bit will kind of clear it all, but not run into the workstation.
Nice.
Okay. And I'll turn that into a reference path too, so it doesn't show up. Okay, the only other detail here is now, instead of cutting an outside cut, we're going to cut an inside cut. So I'm just going to change that from an outside to an inside. And this is great because you can see here with the bit diameter that we're using, I have just enough room to do a little inside pass and with a small offset, and then we'll come back and do a final pass with a final offset.
Perfect. So my roughing offset should be, what, 0.5 millimeter?
I don't work in millimeters, but I would use 200ths.
200ths. You got it.
You know
and I'm not going to make a backside grid again. Although it doesn't.
I think in this one I'll do a front side.
Yeah.
Just so we can reference that front face.
1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty fun. When we go to the second part of the show, I'll show you a little cabinet I was working on, and you can see how some of these things will just add up to a pretty sweet little thing. You know, I would say, you know, cutting sliding dovetails is more complicated than a lot of the types of things you'll do on Origin, but with a little bit of practice, you'll start feeling really comfortable, and yeah, it's like kind of adds a whole nother dimension to interlocking joinery.
You know what's nice about this one too? As I'm just tapping that green button to lower down for the manual Z-touch, I'm like tapping really fast, moving Origin to see as soon as the blades catch and twist slightly. That's my 0.
Yeah, ideally you want to lower it, just slight taps. You know, the lightest little tap you can do, and then drag it forward and backwards or twist the Origin a little bit, and you'll see it just take a tiny little hair off, and yeah. Okay,
right, here we go.
So we'll import this file. Now this is the straight sliding dovetail. So this means the file that we cut already and this file are line to line, perfect all the way down.
Oh, that is it.
You're gonna have to rotate it. So we'll bring this in. It's gonna come in with that anchor point. Just rotate it 90 degrees negative, and then we should be good to go.
There we go.
Okay, and then you can kind of pick wherever you want it to go for this one, but you know, don't get too close to the edge.
Our Y is set to 0, and we're stepped in. Let's do something like 20 millimeters.
Okay. All right. So now we've Z-touched. We have our bits selected at the same diameter. We're going to change that offset to 200ths maybe, and that'll be our first pass. You know, when you're cutting in grain with a dovetail bit, it feels pretty easy. When you change to this mode, things feel a little different.
Right.
And so I would suggest that first pass, try to offset it just a little bit so you can, if you do have any wiggles, when you come back around with that final cut, you'll get a nice clean finish.
Okay, our slot is just barely bigger than my dovetail bit.
Ah, so we should have made it a little bigger.
I can only do 0.3 millimeters offset.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we're going to do 2 cuts, plunge off the material, go all the way back and forward, and then retract when we get back to the end.
And look at that, plenty of space. I can see my workstation. We're good to go.
All right,
let's do it.
Yeah, just slow and easy on the entrance. You know, you will feel more resistance than when you're cutting the other one, but you know, just keep going, slow and steady. Do not retract in this spot, because if you do, you'll blow a hole in the top. But you're gonna see here, Jake just taking it nice and slow. Let auto work its way around, and then that second way on the way back is going to be basically cutting nothing because your bit's so close to the middle. Okay, and then now he's going to change it to a 0 offset. Cut that. All right. Make sure you come all the way off that shape, retract. All right, and now comes the fun fitment part. How you feeling, Jake?
I'm feeling great.
You are?
And I had 0 tear out.
Oh, nice. Well, you know, a nice sharp bit will do that. We're cutting poplar today, so not the hardest material. If you were cutting a harder material, you'd probably expect more tear out, a more brittle material. I noticed you did Doug fir for your cabinet a couple of years ago.
That was a choice.
That is a choice. I mean, I like it a lot. It's just, you know, the Splinter King, huh?
Yeah, my favorite type of wood, and I keep
It's one of my favorites, too.
trying to make it do things it doesn't want to do.
All right, so there's a couple things when we don't want to force it in yet. It may not be quite right. We're going to have to kind of do some checking.
That feels line on line.
Yeah, and so the first step when we're trying to figure out fit, and you're not going to be able to see it over there, but I'm going to bring it over here for a second, is we want to check where, let's see if we can see, yeah. Okay, so we're checking about how deep the shoulder is, and the shoulder here, not that shoulder. This shoulder and the bottom of your material is to your piece. So when we slide it in, you're not going to be able to get it that far in, but you're going to be able to look in here and see if there's a gap here or if there's a gap on this part here. And so that can help you understand if your depth is not quite right, okay? You can always measure it too to make sure they are very close. The tricky thing about cutting dovetails is if, let's say this didn't fit for some reason, if we go deeper, we're actually going to be cutting away some of the parts up at the top as well because it's going to, well, sorry. When we cut deeper, it's going to want to pull this joint more in because the angle is lower. And so we're going to have to adjust it a little bit, but that first step is to make sure that, you know, the shoulder and the bottom are kind of the right depth. Now, if that's correct, then you can just use standard offset to kind of open that up. But if you need to adjust that height there, you're going to have a little bit more finickiness. So what do you think we got, Jake?
I think we need to give it 5 thou.
Okay, so we're just going to change offset. Depth feels good.
Depth feels good.
Okay.
So we'll do, again, I apologize. I'm going to do 5,000ths of an inch.
Yeah, I don't even know what that computes in metric land.
0.13.
Okay, now you know.
I wish I could remember that.
All right, so just quick cut, same thing. Every time you do this, you're going to need to come off the material, start there, go in, come back. Make sure you stay away from your material on plunge and retract. Okay? Now, the fitment of a dovetail is kind of up to you, you know, depending on the situation. If it's a joint you're going to glue and never touch, if it's a joint you're not going to glue and let the mechanical strength hold it together, you're going to look for different fitments. And one of the things you're going to find with these straight dovetails is actually the fitment can be one of the harder parts. And it's because as you move it into the material, it's going to get a little binded up. You know, if a cut's not perfectly smooth, if there's a little something here or there, if the wood's moved on you, like you're going to have to finesse that. Now, the tightness is up to you, and you can kind of use these offsets to kind of pick it out. We went 5,000. Oh, you're looking at the hammer?
No, I looked at it, and then I said no.
I think, well, we're going to go to 8,000?
Let's go to 8 thou.
I think when I did my last one, it was like 8. And I mean, we're you know, you could easily just open it up a little bit more and get it fitting quickly, but I really like a tight one. You know, the nice thing about a nice tight dovetail is it basically gives you a 90-degree joint.
Yeah.
Without anything. It's the nature of how it's built. It just sucks it in. You get a 90-degree joint. Don't have to clamp your cabinet all weird. You know, just nature. All right, one more.
Let's one more.
Now, obviously, once you dial this in with the bits, you can kind of just run through all your other ones. and you're going to have a, you can just run through it. Everything should line up. But getting that first fit right may take a couple times of figuring it out. All right.
This one's for all the marbles. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Nice. Now, that sound is what you're looking for, and you don't want to
get close to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very nice. Okay. So this is, I don't want to say rare necessarily. It works like this quite a bit. But there may be times where you cut and you get it halfway in and it's just will not go anymore, and that's that kind of straight dovetail is going to kind of cause issues where as you enter more of the dovetail into the slot, it's going to bind up more, and kind of be hard to put in. So that is the straight sliding dovetail. And after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about a tapered one and why we might want to do that. Now, the one thing I did want to talk about here is if you are seeing a lot of tear out, if you're using a brittle wood and you cannot get rid of it and it just won't go away, a cool tip that I saw online is essentially to make the tenon part, or the dovetail part, I guess. It's not really a tenon. The dovetail part, make it wider than your material. And then after you've finished, you're going to have tear out on whatever side. You're going to trim those parts down by 1/4 of an inch. A light little bit. Mark it with a marking knife. Take it over the table saw. Rip it. You're going to have a perfect fitting face without all the effort of trying to deal with tear out and think about it. You can see here, this is one that I cut. Maybe let's come back over here. So this is the back side here. And you can see that there's a little bit of a thing that came off the end. But in general, it's pretty good. But if we come to the front, look at that. That tear out happened on entrance of this one. It just clipped all that off. Now, it's really hard to fix that. But you could imagine if we just made everything a little bigger than normal, we could cut that off and we'd have a really beautiful joint. So you can try to fight tear out while you're doing it, or you can just use other woodworking tools to solve your problems. So that is the straight dovetail. Good timing. Let's roll into the break.
Yeah. In a moment, we'll bring up that poll question.
Yep.
Today's question is, what was your favorite masterclass that we've produced? For those that don't know, masterclasses are feature films, essentially, of that we've produced with friends of Shaper, makers that are masters in their craft.
Yeah, we'll pop over here real quick. If you go to the main Shaper website, you'll see at the top, Masterclass button. If you click that, you can scroll through here and kind of see all these crazy ones. We just had one about the design process. There's one about veneering. These are, you need to sit down, make a coffee. You're not going to watch all of it in one go. For instance, Roland Johnson has one on hand planes, and we have, 3 different classes, for that one on hand planes. If you go to Caleb's chair making one, we have a bunch of classes on that, hand shaping and card scraper techniques. So each one's kind of a little bit different. Not all of them are even about origin. A lot of them are just about the craft that these people have actually cultivated over their life, and we just are trying to tell that story for them. If you don't have a Shaper account, you can still watch them. You just have to put your email address in, and then you'll get access. Or you can go ahead and create a Shaper account, and then you'll have access to them as well.
There you go.
So check that out. And yeah, if you haven't watched any of them, in the poll, just put, I haven't seen one yet, but I'm going to check it out later. And if you have seen it, just put the name of the person or the concept that you're seeing here. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out, definitely lots of rich knowledge in here.
Nice.
So, cool. All right. What else we got, Jake?
Right now, we also are in the midst of our spring deal. So if you have a friend or family member that's in the market, now's a great time to buy. Go ahead and hop over to the page, show off what you're getting. We have our bundle deals, especially when you combine Bench Pilot and Origin. but of course our classic workstation plate origin full kit. Freebies are going to include, you scroll up to the top.
Oh, yeah.
Freebies, we have 2 sets of our reversible clamps, ones that work both in squeezy clamp direction and slide into workstation's face. A micro sustainer, one of my favorites, or Sean's definite favorite, the pry bar, and a 2-inch roll of double-sided tape. Things that we think that you're going to need to get you started right off the bat. Of course, you're also going to get access to 2 free online training sessions. We're going to get you from out of the box, up and running with everything you need to know. And free premium projects. These are projects that will walk you through step-by-step instructions, everything from bill of materials to what the settings for origin are, and even how to finish the thing.
Yep. Very nice.
That's going through to the 27th of this month. I believe that's Friday.
What's your favorite combo here?
Bench pilot.
Yeah, you got to have the bench pilot workstation combo.
Yeah.
I also like the origin workstation combo if you're not quite ready for the automation world, doing it yourself, you know?
Yeah. And if you're someone that's like, I'm not doing joinery, I'm doing hardware installs all day. That's my bread and butter.
Totally. Then we're looking
origin plate.
Yeah, totally. Yep. So check it out. Lots of savings.
Right on. As far as a shop tour, I tell you what, I looked.
We got some bad news, Jake.
I do not have a new shop tour because some of the iCloud links that y'all have sent to me have expired. So again, if you sent your shop tour over to sessions@shapertools.com and it sent the file via iCloud link, that expires in a certain amount of time.
We're going to have to pre-download them next time.
And I will do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just if we haven't shown your tour, respond to the old one with a new link.
And I'll reach out too.
Yep, we'll get you on there.
Cool.
And if you haven't sent yours in yet, what are you waiting on?
Yeah, we know there's more people with shops out there. Even if you don't want to show off your shop, show off your friend's shop.
Yeah. I mean, probably ask them, but
maybe ask them.
Okay, so that's it for break. Now let's jump into tapered sliding dovetails.
Tapered.
Okay, let me come here for a second, and we're gonna come back to Sean's little test piece and talk about this. So I don't know if you can read these, but okay. So I did a list of cuts. So the 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all straight tapers. Okay, and so when I did the default one, it went in pretty well, but a little loose. Okay. And so then I started adjusting things. I did shallower. That didn't help. And you can see here how much it wiggles. And if you don't get the depth right, you're gonna have those problems. And then I went deeper, and you can see here that starts to pull it in quite a bit. It's starting to be pretty nice. And then even deeper is essentially I can't get it in anymore. So that's a straight dovetail. If you have any inconsistency in the file, your cut, your material, anything, it's either probably going to be too loose or too tight. That's kind of the nature of it. Now, the last two are tapers. And what that means, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. You can have a single taper, which looks like this little demonstration, where basically you have one side of the dovetail that's a little bit not parallel with the other. Or you could have a double where you actually have it kind of going in together for both. Now, these files, we're not going to go into today how to make these, but I think if you know Studio, and you could take this and figure this out. We're going to focus on the through because it just makes it a little easier to explain and design. So here we go. We have our first taper, and you can see here it's actually still a little too loose. And now what you're going to see when you have the taper is on this front corner here, and you're going to see that it actually moves a little bit on the front. And the idea is that as you further seat it, it's getting tighter but here, and it's still locking here, but it's not fully bound the entire line. And so when I did the final one, this one you can feel the pressure change when you get towards the end, and it feels really nice. So it's loose here and tight there, and that's basically what we're solving with the taper. So we're going to quickly show you how we built that. and then we'll cut another one, and then we'll see if Jake has to use the same offset. Normally, when I'm doing the tapers, the offset's a lot smaller because you don't need that extra distance all the way down. You're going to get it by nature of the opening going to the closing. Okay? So we're going to start off. Now, there's a couple ways to do this, I already said. Some people may say, hey, why aren't we doing this one? And we could, maybe next show. But I'm going to show you how we can kind of do this anyways after we finish this cut. But for now, we're just going to basically cut that same file we had earlier. The dovetail side is going to be straight and parallel on both sides. And we're going to just open up the mortise on the other side. So we're not actually tapering both. We're just tapering the one. Now, you could taper both if you wanted and have like, you know, one side of the dovetail going in and then the mortise one side of going in and fit them that way. But the only problem then, you have to think about reference faces. Which way is the panel going in? Oh, when I flip it, I have to reverse the file. So I like this method of straight on the tenon, or straight on the dovetail, and then one taper on the side.
I like it.
So we'll start by cutting the same one we cut earlier. No need to redo that. You can just import that and cut that, and then we'll jump over to Studio, and I'll show you how we're going to modify it for that tapered. So this is essentially just a repeat now. Yep, that's correct.
Did you?
I did modify it a little bit, remember? I made it shorter on the one end.
It's okay. I think I can work with that.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Remind me what that offset was, though.
That offset was in the file.
Oh, yeah.
On screen.
Written in giant text.
See, that's where I like this. This is the, you know, you're like, oh, dang, I got to go back to the calculator, enter my stuff to figure it out. Nope. We already did that work. Just type it in, make sure it's in millimeters.
Beautiful. Okay, let me do this real quick.
Okay, so we're going to cut this just like we did the previous one. I love watching the dovetail go through it on the bottom, and you see that undercut. You can see why if he was to retract now, the bit is inside of that, and it's going to destroy the top of the workpiece. You know. Slow down towards the end, and boom. Okay. All right, so there's our straight dovetail. And now we're going to come over to Studio, and I'm going to explain how I quickly make this file. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and select that shape that we were already working with and zoom to fit. And so essentially, if this is this side over here is the front and that's the back, we want to open the side that's not going to be seen by the part, especially if it's a through dovetail. Because, you know, the taper is going to be wider on one side than the other. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to basically recreate this shape with a tiny little offset here and use the pin tool or the draw tool to open that up. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and I'm going to start by adding a little tiny rectangle that is 1/128 inch by 1/128. And so I tried a bunch of these small ones to try to find out what was working well. It's this tiny little rectangle, and this is the one that I found that has been working well for me. So I'm just going to snap it right to the corner of this material. So now that I got that, you can see where I'm going. I'm going to basically make a draw tool that uses that little point and then goes back to where we're at. So I'm going to come over here to the draw tool, and I'm just going to go clicking around every corner. So this corner first, then I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to make sure it snaps to that corner there. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to pan down here. We can zoom out now. We don't have to be so far in. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here, and click this little corner. This little corner. And I'm going to click this little corner. Cool. So now we have a draw tool that, if you look, is a little bit different than that previous shape. And everything matches except for this one edge, and it's now a leading edge to go in. So I'm going to just delete that other one for now so we don't mess it up. So I'll delete that. And now we have the draw tool shape that I just made. Same reference as we were previously using. And the only thing I need to make sure that I do is turn this to a reference path, just a little tiny rectangle. So now we've used the draw tool to taper that shape just a little tiny bit. I think the angle is, if you were to click the shape, you would see it's essentially, it's a 0.03 degree angle.
Wow.
Okay. And that's one of the cool things about the draw tool. If you click the corners, you can understand these. And we could also modify that if we wanted to open or close that angle up a bit. Okay. So that's it. It's now a taper at the front, and then it gets a little thinner towards the back to what we were previously doing. And that's just going to allow that dovetail to kind of slide in and then tighten up over time. Okay.
Okay. Just regridded.
Okay.
On the right side now.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to bring that file in.
I like this, build a file in Studio and then use the grid on Origin to move things around and make sure it's snapped properly.
Rotate 90. Nope. Rotate -90.
A little acrobatics with the rotation.
Yeah.
Well, it's the beauty of Origin, you don't have to go back to the computer to fix some of these things.
I'm also going to reflect it because I measured, my last one was, I want to say 30 millimeters from the edge. 20, thank you, Ian. Bingo.
Okay.
Now you have that set to online. I
Now,
you
I screwed that up, because I didn't change it to an inside cut. So we'll just do that on the tool.
swap back to my dovetail cutter.
I will say, with the gridding back and forth, make sure you're always checking which spindle's in. I may or may not have forgotten to swap spindles earlier.
Plunging with the probe bit.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when you're cutting, the dovetail bit can feel a little heavy, and it was feeling real heavy. And then I was like, if it feels too heavy, you just kind of stop, figure it out, and then I realized, oh yeah, well, that'll do it.
So I'm moving back and forth, tapping that green button. There it goes. Just that little bit of motion tells me I have made contact.
Yeah. All right, and then we'll kind of do the same thing here. We'll cut something with a tiny offset, just so we have a little bit of room, and then we'll cut to 0, and we'll start there.
All right. Beautiful. Double check. I'm not going to bite workstation. Great. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah, just go slow and steady when you're starting these, this side grain cuts, because you'll feel so much different. If you're expecting what you expected when you're cutting those vertical cuts, you're going to be shocked. It's just a very different level of pressure. Okay, and then we'll change that to 0. Now, I didn't realize this, but Jake could have been using auto pass if he would have turned the depth passes off. So maybe I'll quickly show that after this. Not that it's going to save you a lot of time in this situation, but it's kind of fun because it would combine the roughing and finishing pass in one little go. You could just go around twice. Now, if you are using AutoPass or you're using Bench Pilot, you are going to need to make that distance where you're ramping into your material a lot further. So one of the pros of not using Bench Pilot or AutoPass for these cuts is you can plunge cut right over the top and then start moving with AutoPass, with Bench Pilot. You're going to need a longer ramp. And I saw Bo actually updated that file, or the website he created to get these numbers, to tell you how long the ramp needs to be.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so one little keynote. You can see here, Jake's just kind of sanding off the top. What I've noticed is when you're cutting with a dovetail bit, it almost seems like it's a little upcut bit because the fibers want to come up a little bit. And so you need to sand that off because that a little amount will keep the shoulder from seating well. So just a little sandpaper and... All right, so let's see if this is going to... this may or may not go. It will probably go in the beginning. The question if it will go after is another...
It'll go. But again, pretty line on line.
Yeah. And this is where, like, I think, you know, you're going to want to open it up a little bit, but definitely not as much as we previously did. Maybe like 4th thou.
4th thou.
Try that. You know, you can always go more. It's hard to get the dovetail to fit tighter.
That is true. It's only going to fit looser because the fibers are going to compress.
They will over time, too. Yep.
All right. Quick one here.
Now, this is where if you have the stopped sliding dovetail versus the through sliding dovetail, you are going to see some differences, you know. With the through sliding dovetail, if you get this taper right or wrong, it may seat further or closer to the front. When you have that stopped one and you have kind of perfectly mating files, you're going to be a lot more, it's going to have a lot more specifics of like how it fits. And so this is one where like, if I were doing this and I wanted these to be through, I would actually cut these longer than the piece we're going to finalize and just trim those sidewalls up afterwards.
There we go. Oh, that's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, so it's a little bit loose in the beginning, and as you get closer, it starts tightening up. And this is where, you know, you're going to try to figure out that fit. You know, this is another thing where, you know, it's funny, even like sometimes I have to sand the bottom of the stock because the ridges on the grain on the bottom are what's actually holding it up.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a nice... I want to drive that all the way home.
Well, and you will get to the point where it feels so good, but it doesn't want to come out. And so, like, the question is how many times you're putting it in or out, and, you know, what are you actually using this joint for? I figured while Jake is looking at that one, I would just bring this little cabinet I built while I was testing this out this week and talk about a couple other little details. So you can see here, I have essentially 2 sliding dovetails on the ends, and I have this piece in the middle. Now, this piece is also a sliding dovetail, but I cut the tops off, and in the file, it's hard to see here, but I didn't actually cut this one all the way through. So this would be essentially a stopped sliding tapered dovetail that doesn't go all the way through, and it actually is just so nice. Now, this one, you could make it so that when you cut it, it stops perfectly flush there. In this case, I didn't really want to go through the detail of designing it, so all I did was I took this piece over to my vise, and I cut it out with a saw. And so, you know, it's really a question of how much do you want to deal with software. You know, it took 5 minutes to get that set up at the vise afterwards. And I think it looks a lot better than these through dovetails on the front. So, lots of possibilities.
I'm committed to getting this to fit.
Oh yeah, you're gonna go one more.
So we just did 4.
We did 4. What do you
5.
think? You think 5? Don't you love it when you're like 1 thou difference is
yeah,
what I'm...
that's going to be the
ticket.
ticket.
You know, it's like as soon as you put sandpaper to that thing, it's like not going to be the same. But you really can't help yourself. With this level of precision, it's like you want that perfect amount.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll.
goes. Oh my. I wish all of you could feel what I just felt. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think what I was saying just earlier, maybe it's a little easier to describe now. I would have made this part here, if we go to that side camera, I would have made this part a little thicker than here. And after we get the right fit, because it will keep going because it's a through dovetail, you could find whatever fit you want, mark it, trim that, and you have this perfect fitting thing without all the finagling of, the details of designing that and getting it exactly right. So that's the sliding dovetail and the tapered sliding dovetail. I mean, it does make those glue up so much nicer. I mean, how much wiggle do we have on that one? None.
None.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that's the basics. I thought maybe before we go to Q&A, I did have a few other things. I just want to make sure I hit all the little details because there were a few other little tidbits as I was going through this that I thought I might share for a minute, just in case people are using it and they have some questions. So if you're getting tear out on the dovetail side when you're cutting this first piece, and what I ended up seeing was right when I'm entering the cut, it's tearing out, and I was seeing some bad tear out. Slowing down that initial entrance will change it a lot, and so that's one little tip you can do. If you're seeing it on the slot cut, really, one other really smart detail is to essentially take a straight cutting bit and maybe if we come over here real quick. So this is essentially what's happening with a dovetail, right? We're going through this. Maybe this is a good way to show it. We're going through this channel underneath, and we're removing all that material at once because we have to be at our final depth, and we really can't do anything about it. But what you can do is take a straight bit, make a channel that is essentially a little bit smaller than the top channel of your dovetail, and run a straight flute through it just to clear out the middle. Switch bits, come back to your dovetail bit, and now you're only removing the undercut essentially. And so that's one that, if you're cutting really heavy material, I would suggest pre-cutting those slots with a straight bit. It will help a lot. Okay, another one. Okay, this is actually a critical one. Look at that. Look at that little stool. If you're going to make your first dovetail cut, do your scan, and then before you start cutting, do an air cut, and make sure that you're not seeing anything weird where when you get to the top of the workstation, you've had your tape covered. Because if you get to a point where you have low tape or tape movement or any of those issues, it's going to retract the bit. And so just do a little air cut, make sure whatever path you're going to travel is safe. Another good one, and this is one that I found out. I tried cutting one. We're going to come over here for a second. So this is the size of the shaper dovetail bit here, right? Pretty large. I also realized we have that small dovetail bit with the
Kaivo bender.
Kaivo bender.
Yeah.
And I tried one with that. Now, the thing that I noticed is, there's a huge amount of wedge here that really sucks it in. But on this smaller one, it's a lot less. And so when I went to fit it, it really didn't have the holding power that this bigger one did. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted to use thinner material in a cabinet I'm making, so I would need to go to a smaller dovetail bit. But it is going to, your strength is going to come from that thickness. It's also going to come from the thickness of the shoulder here. So if you have basically no shoulder, let me say here, if you have no shoulder here, when you put it in, it's not going to have anything to keep flat on the surface. So if this shoulder is very small and you just have a small dovetail cut, you're not going to get a shoulder for it to seat into this top here. And it's going to want to essentially work its way back and forth when you have it inserted. One note, softwood is going to compress a lot more. So if you're cutting dovetails with poplar, a softwood, you might be able to just hammer it in the first time, and then when you come out, it's going to be perfect. But harder woods, you're going to have to kind of nail that fit because it's not going to compress into shape very well. And one that I learned, this is actually pretty interesting. We always say don't retract during dovetail cuts, right? You're going to see here, when I was doing these tests, I wasn't really following my own advice. You can see that's where the little dovetail bit came out when I retracted. But because I have a pretty big shoulder on this, when the dovetail's inserted,
Who's to know?
you'll never know. What retraction? So a big shoulder can also help a little bit with that. It's essentially right on the line, where it's supposed to be. So, even if you do retract, if you retract in the middle of a sliding dovetail, no one's going to know. Now, you don't want to do it on the ends because you're definitely going to know. But towards the inside, it's going to be good. I think that's it. The last one, make sure you're spaced off the edge just a little bit because you don't have that strength you have in the middle of a joint. Yeah. I also see a lot of people using sliding dovetails for the center of carcasses and then mortise and tenons on the outside.
Makes sense.
So the world's your oyster,
Excellent.
And that's the show.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming. Let's go ahead and head over to the Q&A.